Hi everyone, my name is Bia, and today, first of all, I'd like to say some stuff. Firstly, this is kind of a 2.0 version of my first video, I guess. Well, mostly because I'll be talking about Brazilian history from the beginning, just like I was trying to do on the first history video I made. But the problem is that it's wrong and terrible and I kind of hate it, so I'm just going to reset the timeline and start from the beginning. So this is the first episode of Brazilian history. So it all began in the end of the 15th century, okay? So Spain and Portugal had the most strong and advanced fleet in all Europe, and well, the easiest way to get rich back then was from trading spices and other stuff that came from India. Those two world powers were desperate to find an alternative route to India, once the Mediterranean Sea was kind of a mess. So there was battles and people killing each other and people monopolizing it. It was terrible, and they just wanted to find an alternative way so they can get rich faster. So what they did is that they started investing in travel, right? And to go further anyone had ever done. So you probably know this part of history, right? And the first kingdom to ever send their expeditions off were the Spanish. As probably most of you know, in the night of August 3rd of 1492, a fleet composed of 3 ships left the Spanish cities of Palos de la Frontera and commanded by Christopher Columbus himself. And roughly 2 months later, in October 12th of 1492, they found land in the island that today is part of the Bahamas. So what happened there is that they found new land. They were trying to find India, but they found new land. And then when he returned, the rumors start being spread. Oh my God, Christopher Columbus just found new land, and that kind of spread around whole Europe. And of course, it got to the ears of the Portuguese king, John II, who wanted very much to explore those lands and was kind of pissed, I guess. He sent letters to pretty much every Catholic ruler back then, saying that this new land found by Spain actually belonged to him, because of a treaty called the Treaty of the Treaty of Alcaçovas, signed 14 years before that in 1479, which granted all land south of the Canary Islands to the Portuguese crown. Well, of course, the Spanish didn't really want to give their land away to Portugal, and Portugal didn't even want all of those land. They just wanted a bit of that sweet colony juice. So what pretty much happened is that they decided to settle this down. So they created the Treaty of Tordesilhas, which basically divided the world in half just for Spain and Portugal, completely disconsidering all of the other countries in Europe. And well, of course, let's not even mention how disrespectful it was for the native people of America to have their own country, their own continent, their own lands divided by 2 foreign powers. But okay. It happened, right? So both rulers of Portugal and Spain, so Portugal was represented by John II, and Spain by Ferdinand II of Aragon, Isabella I of Castile, and their son, John Prince of Austria, signed the Treaty of Tordesillas, which stated that the all land 270 leagues west from Cape of Good Hope, that was a Portuguese land, would belong to Portugal. So well, they got this island, they draw a line. So everything here and everything east that, so that included Africa and some other stuff, would belong to Portugal. And everything that we found west that, further that line, would belong to Spain. Now, if you get this map, you will see there's United States, Canada, and we all know that those weren't colonized by Spain. Some stuff happened later, so nobody actually cared about this treaty, not even Portugal. They just wanted some law saying, okay, now we have this land, and very much, because if you get the original Treaty of Tordesillas drawings and maps or whatever, you would see that Brazilian territory was tiny compared to the nowadays Brazilian territory. And well, Spain didn't even care. They were too busy in Mexico and the Central America to actually care about what was happening in Brazil. So yes, we kind of went uh, grabbing gradually more territory from Spain, and well, it turned out to be the Brazil that we know today. Of course, except for Acre that we bought from Bolivia. But okay. So this is where Brazilian history actually began, let's say that. On March 9th of 1500, a larger expedition than the one Columbus originally led left from Lisbon, Portugal. They were supposed to get to India by circumnavigating Africa, just like Vasco da Gama, another Portuguese captain, had done a year earlier in 1499. But things kind of got out of hand, and they kind of accidentally, of course we don't know that, they might as well have been looking for that land, uh, and they kind of got to where now is Brazil. They first, in April 22nd of 1500, they anchored in an island which Pedro Álvares Cabral called Pascal Island, which kind of means Easter Island because it was in the week of Easter. And a day later, in April 23rd of 1500, they arrived in a place that nowadays is the city of Porto Seguro in the Brazilian state of Bahia. So yeah, I think that things kind of went right. They met the indigenous people who inhabited the area and started kind of trading with them. Like, oh, here, we are Portuguese. Here, take a mirror. Now give us food and home and your wives. And yeah, this was kind of trading that kind of happened. Of course, there was some more in-depth stuff that happened. I think a war effort and all, but I don't really have access to this kind of information, so I'm not even going to start going deeper into that. Well, Brazil is named Brazil because of Brazilian redwood, which in Portuguese is pau Brasil, so you kind of can get pau Brasil, Brazil, whatever. So there was this tree that was called pau Brasil that would be used to dye cloth red, and it was very common. So they could just walk in the in the forest. Oh, here, those very expensive trees. So they kind of brought that from the trip because they kind of had to get money, and that was the main source of that was one of the main economic resources of the colony, along with sugar, until well, coffee came around, but that's later. So also in the fleet there was a dude named Pero Vaz de Caminha who was supposed to register the travel. So he would write stuff that would like register the travel. I think that's very simple. And when they got to Brazil, he wrote this giant letter addressed to the King of Portugal, describing the land they just found. And that was like kind of important because they say that it was like the first letter sent from Brazil to Portugal, and also they were very Catholic. Just like I said, they just named an island Easter Island, so right. They built a 7 meters high, 7 meters tall cross. That in feet is about 23 feet tall. A giant cross to pray in Easter Day. So yeah, very interesting, right? Just stuff that happened that they insist telling us in school. We don't really care. We want the bloody details, okay? So what happened in Brazil is that opposing to what happened to the Spanish was that they did not find gold right away, just like or silver, right? So when the Spanish got to their land, they just gold, silver, oh my god, look at these civilizations covered with gold. What happens is that the inhabitants of Brazil were mostly nomadic, so they didn't really have many riches with them, so they didn't explore gold. And the Portuguese also did not explore gold, so who knew there was gold in Brazil? They would only find it in the 17th to the 19th century. So that was like, okay, there isn't gold in Brazil. Let's abandon this shit, because the only thing they cared about was silver and gold. And since they did not find any of those in Brazil, why would they stay here? And that was their main logic. They literally abandoned the colony for the first 30 years of its existence. There was nothing here. There was kind of a couple of farms selling sugar, but there wasn't really any colonization effort made by the Portuguese crown. So it was literally abandoned until like the Portuguese king, like, oh my god, we have this land, right? We have to do something. So he kind of applied a administrative system that he had been applying in the Madeira Island, right? That was to divide the land into various captaincies. That's what they call, but that they're pretty much like states, I guess, which would be governed by a governor, and well, they were responsible for taking care of their land, of their captaincy. They called it the hereditary captaincy. But the problem of this system is that it was only applied to Portuguese islands. Now, you cannot compare the Madeira Island with Brazilian in the colonial period. You can't compare Portugal to Brazil in, of course, territory wise, right? Brazil is the 5th largest country in the world. Portugal is tiny. So whatever worked there, it wouldn't work in Brazil. Brazil was huge. So even the tiniest captaincy was larger than the whole territory of Portugal. And well, it did not work, right? Let's say that. What happened is that only 2 of the 15 captaincies actually made it out alive. What happened to the other ones? They broke, they went bankrupt, they were straight out abandoned by their governors. Nobody wanted this crap. Why would they have to take care, spend money fighting indigenous for nothing? There wasn't gold, there wasn't silver, there was nothing in here. Why would people want to stay here? And well, that's what happened to Brazil. Brazil was abandoned, okay? Well, of course, when they started finding gold and, well, all the other stuff, they kind of began to be a bit important. There was Salvador, there was the capital of Brazil, but no one really important was here, let's say that. Well, the Portuguese king only came to Brazil in 1806, so yeah. Well, I'm not sure if it was 1806, but it was during the Napoleonic Wars, right? So yeah, we don't really were loved by the Portuguese crown, and well, that's kind of happened. Brazil was only inhabited by a couple of rich farmers, their slaves, some indigenous peoples who pissed them off, and well, the peasants who were mostly mixed, right, between Portuguese and indigenous, or were real Portuguese or Europeans were not part of Europe, who came to Brazil because they did not really have anything else to do. So that was Brazil for around 300 years, I guess. Of course, there are some events that happened that were actually very interesting, but I want to give more a general view of the history of Brazil, so I will be straight out simply just jumping from here, that is around like the end of the 17th century, to when the Portuguese family, the Portuguese royal family comes to Brazil in the beginning of the 19th century. So thanks for listening. Please, if you enjoy this, subscribe, of course, if you're looking at this on SoundCloud or whatever platform, just do your subscribe thing. Of course, I know that YouTube has subscribe. I think that you can follow me on SoundCloud. I don't really know how this works. Also, I have a Twitter account. It has @Bia has a podcast, and follow me there. I kind of will sometimes, who knows, post some interesting stuff about history or whatever. Thanks very much for listening. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.